points of interest in the scene. They may also have an inverse kinematic system layered in there to make sure that character hands and feet contact uneven surfaces properly, and they'll probably have a bunch of other smaller automated things happening in there too, like eye blinks or maybe tiny eye darts to keep the character feeling alive. It's a really complex machine when you step back and look at it, an intricate combination of assembled pieces and procedural systems working together to hopefully create a good-looking, believably animated conversation. The results may not be quite as interesting to look at or have nearly as much character as any given Uncharted conversation, but it works pretty well, and it allows a moderately sized animation team to efficiently animate hundreds of conversations in a pretty reasonable amount of time. Now, BioWare has always been one of the forefront studios pioneering systems like this. Lengthy, branching conversations had been a regular feature of their games since the days of Baldur's Gate, but with Knights...
I would fucking hurt somebody if I had to play that. I can't read small text, even with my larger glasses that I've super glued together.
You look very handsome, husband.
Can you tell they've been super glued, wife?
If from this close, yes.
Okay.
Of the Old Republic, they tried to take those old text conversations and make them feel a little more like cutscenes. They recorded voice acting for all the dialogue. They brought the camera in closer for some basic shot reverse shots. They had the characters do these very simple talking animation cycles and implemented some very simplistic procedural lip sync.
We can't afford any distractions. We need to find a way off Terrace.
By the release of the original Mass Effect, they'd managed to add a great deal of cinematic flair to this system, with more animation variety and a more dynamic camera.
What are you waiting for? I'm standing right here. This is Fist's only chance.
I love those scenes in the goddamn club. They're so fucking
And they've
funny.
only continued to refine things over the course of the Mass Effect and Dragon Age trilogies. Of course, there are other game studios out there that have implemented similar systems, and I think we can all agree that the current reigning champ is CD Projekt Red with The Witcher 3.
Wow.
If you haven't seen it, you should, because their conversation system is breathtaking. See, one of the inherent downsides of conversation systems has always been their relative stiffness and sameness. Because each conversation and every character is getting animated with the same set of pieces, they tend to start looking and feeling pretty similar, and there's usually a lack of specificity to any given performance. And I'm not saying that The Witcher 3 doesn't struggle with that same problem. It comes a lot closer to overcoming it than any of its competitors. Characters stand or sit in such a wide variety of stances and poses as they speak. Their gestures layer and combine in ways that feel very natural and surprisingly tied to the specifics of what they're saying.
The madding crowd dubbed me Master Mirror, or the Man of Glass.
Their facial animation is robust enough that you can...
Do you like games written like that?
Like what?
Like how that guy was just talking.
Yeah, why not?
I'm just asking if you do.
I'm saying yeah, why not? They're great.
I don't have a reason why not. Why are you asking me why not?
I mean, I'm not like asking you why not. I'm just saying
okay.
why not.
Oh, okay.
Stop making it so complicated, husband.
I thought it was funny.
That was
actually
funny.
read emotion.
You left out a word there. You thought it was funny what?
Make it runny in the middle, I might tell you.
No, I'm not going to make it
Make
runny.
it runny.
I'm not going to make it runny in the middle.
You know what I mean? Skitten hate eggs, right?
I hate runny eggs. They're disgusting.
I hate eggs. Skitten hates runny eggs. Get your feet off my stuff.
My foot is not on anything.
Move your foot back. Don't put your foot back there.
Ow.
You just unplugged something. You didn't hear it?
I heard it.
Oh, yeah. That's because you put your foot over there.
But I literally didn't even, my foot didn't touch anything.
Okay, that's fine. But, so me and Skitten hate eggs.
Is it this thing I unplugged?
That's it. We're not plugged into that computer, you sweet.
Oh. Well, I literally, my foot didn't touch anything.
Okay, baby. Can we focus now? Because the camera's still on. I don't care.
Okay.
Okay. So me and Skitten hate eggs.
Runny eggs.
I hate eggs. She hates runny eggs.
Eggs are delicious, but runny eggs are disgusting.
And so we were watching them make toads in a basket.
Toads in a hole.
And I called it
Eggies in a basket.
It's eggies in a basket. And the guy was talking about how the guy ate it and he cut, the top looked like it was cut and he cut it open. It was all runny in the middle. So I told Skitten, give me a kiss for making it runny in the middle by putting her tongue in my mouth. That's how we're going to call it French kissing from now on. Making it runny in the middle.
Then I will never French kiss you again.
Do it.
Nope.
And
Make it
thoughts
run.
into their expressions. Characters will exchange meaningful looks mid-conversation, which you can actually interpret.
These are not the hands of an excellency, but of a farmer. So we speak peasant to peasant. How much can you give?
that CDPR has managed to build a conversation animation system so robust that their dialogue scenes frequently almost feel like they were custom animated is incredible. It's so successful that they almost make it look easy, but believe me, this was not easy. CDPR committed lots.
What's up?
I want to play this game now.
You should. I love it. And there's sex in it.
Of resources to this
There is.
system. They built over 30
mind,
different
I don't wanna play this
conversation
game anymore.
stances per character type, with thousands of modifiable gestures, an impressive directional head tracking system, and all sorts of blending options. Even more importantly, they invested heavily in tools. Their dialogue scene editor is incredibly robust
That
and is even
shit
capable
looks
of
terrible.
auto-generating scenes, complete with simple gestures and camera work, which the animators and dialogue designers can then use as a baseline and a starting point, rather than having to begin that work from scratch. The designers could also easily alter these animations as
This is
needed for
crazy.
each character or individual scene to get even more mileage and flexibility out of their animation library. And what's more, since The Witcher 3 is an open-world game, they had to build good solutions to account for lighting these scenes so that they looked good in any time of day or weather. And they had to find
Insane.
solutions to keep NPCs from wandering right in front of the conversation camera. I don't think any other studio
That's
out there
crazy.
is currently equipped to pull off something like this. It is really incredible what that team achieved, and they deserve every compliment you can give them. Peter Tomczynski showed off their whole system at GDC 2016. You can still see it in the vault if you're interested.
I'm gonna look that up.
Anyway, you get the idea. These conversation systems are intricate machines with a lot of moving parts, all coordinating to turn a simple dialogue exchange into an engaging cutscene.
Right.
And as The Witcher 3 proves, with enough resources and quality tools, the results can be pretty extraordinary. But of course, the more intricate moving parts a system has, the more susceptible it is to breakage. If any one part of a dialogue system breaks, it could potentially ruin the scene. And if you get multiple problems happening at once, the entire thing falls to pieces.
Right.
Which, I guess, brings us to Mass Effect Andromeda. I'll be honest, I don't know what's going wrong with their system.
Look at her
I can make
fucking eyes.
guesses, but without being
God damn.
familiar with how their particular dialogue system works, it's impossible to know exactly what's going wrong under the hood, given how complex these systems are. Now, one thing I don't intend to do here is assign blame to anybody in particular. I couldn't if I wanted to, honestly, because no one person's responsible for systems like these. Dialogue systems are a true team effort. Dozens of people had a hand in putting this system together. At first, it might seem obvious that the animators must be to blame for these problems. After all, it's the animation that's breaking, right? Well, that's possible, but weird as it might sound, I'm not entirely sure this is an animation problem. In fact, the issues we're seeing in Andromeda might actually have nothing to do with the animators. The animation team will have built all of the animations and the face expressions and all of the animated pieces that are meant to fit into this system, true, but they aren't actually the people who put all these pieces together or direct the scenes. That task generally falls to designers or cinematic animators, the same folks who decide camera placement and such. But the problems might not be their fault either. The issues we're seeing here could partially be the result of their procedural systems going haywire. The characters' eyes darting around weirdly could be bugs in their eye tracking system, with the tracker constantly switching between targets. The weird character walks and such are almost certainly a result of bugs in their IK system, and the face expression problems could be caused by any number of technical issues.
Are you for real? You were going to tell me who you are.
Assuming that their system is set up so that each line of dialogue is assigned tags determining which emotion or gestures should accompany them, it could be that there's a bug preventing the correct expressions from triggering when they're supposed to, thus resulting in these blank, expressionless faces.
Let's not forget what else happened on Habitat 7. This is powerful alien tech. You need to respect it.
Right.
Go slow.
It's just
Or
not
heck,
reading
I've even
it.
heard it suggested that this could be a compression issue, that the dialogue's emotion tag data might have gotten so compressed to fit on disk that the system's having trouble reading the tags correctly. Now you might be asking, how
Yeah.
could they run into so many technical issues like this
they
when they've
rushed it.
clearly figured this all out before? They've already made 3 Mass
rushed it.
Effect games that had none of these problems. And that's true, but one major difference between Andromeda and the previous trilogy is the game's engine, which is a major factor. The
And you've been talking about that with people for a long time.
So I
You need to
found.
go through the whole.
No, I'm not going
Okay.
through the whole thing.
Well, don't you snap at me, wife?
Shut up, husband.
Apologize to your husband.
And apologize to your wife.
For what? You snapped at me and I said, don't snap at me. And you told me to shut up.
I wasn't telling you to shut up. I was just telling you to shut up.
The conversation is what it is.
Sorry, husband. So...
Now make it runny in the middle.
I'm not making it runny in the middle.
That's part of the apology process.
So anyway, I ended up meeting somebody on Twitter who worked on Andromeda.
Meeting? Stalking?
I don't know how else to say it. I didn't stalk him.
Stalking, same thing.
So anyway, met him on Twitter who worked on Mass Effect 3 and Andromeda.
Yep.
Or no, Mass Effect 3, and he quit before Andromeda because they switched the engine.
Right.
And he was like, once you switch that engine, you put this crazy load on everybody's backs.
Yeah.
That you ask them to do things that they cannot do with this new engine.
Right. Or don't know how to.
Or don't know how to do because they're
Right.
used to using this old engine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, you know, like, that's something that I've been not like privy to because, like, obviously the information's out there. But, like, that's just something that I became aware of, you know, after the fact. So then I became a lot less, I became a lot less judgmental of the people who actually went in and made the game, and a lot more judgmental of BioWare itself.
I mean, it's one of those simple things where once you hear that and you understand how the systems work, when you work in any kind of technology, you think, okay, between MySpace and Facebook, right? You could be using HTML in Facebook even though you don't need to, just because you don't know, because you only used to work with MySpace. You know what I'm saying? And it's just stuff like that where just like there's a more efficient way to do it that you could be unaware of. But making an issue with compression that he brought up where you just aren't using the right ways to place the tags down. They could be doing manually what should be done automatically. They could be using settings in the new system that just don't work compression wise when you make it into a game and just not know because they're learning it for the first time. You know what I'm saying? And so you can run into all these new problems, and that's such an interesting thing to me that they decided to test out this new system with one of their biggest releases.
One of their most beloved series.
Yeah, that's just like, so you didn't even test it on a smaller game to iron out the kinks. And it's probably something simple, but you know there's no simple fix. You have to probably rebuild the entire game and do it differently to get it to work now. It's just insane.
Original Mass Effect was built in Unreal Engine 3, and they stayed with that engine for the entire trilogy, so each time they started work on a sequel, they already had a perfectly functional dialogue system to work with, and they could just focus on refining it and building more on top of it. But Andromeda is the first Mass Effect game built in EA's much newer and more powerful Frostbite engine, and changing engines is always a massive undertaking. All of the code and all of the assets built up over the previous games would be useless, so they would more or less be starting from scratch building Andromeda's dialogue system. I can imagine all sorts of problems that could emerge from that. But then again, Andromeda wasn't the first BioWare RPG built in Frostbite. Dragon Age Inquisition was built in the same engine, and that turned out pretty good. Now, these games' development cycles did overlap a little bit, so maybe there were limits on how much of that tech they could share, or maybe they had different goals in mind for their respective systems. Who knows? Game dev is weird. Or maybe it's not a technical issue at all. Perhaps, as veteran animator Jonathan Cooper suggested in a really fantastic Twitter thread on the subject, linked down below if you want to see it, this could have just been a scheduling and pipeline problem. It's my understanding that BioWare has tools similar to the Witcher team which allow them to generate a baseline conversation scene automatically, just to serve as a foundation for the cinematic designers to start working from. For the sake of argument, let's assume that their auto-generation algorithm exists and is pretty simplistic. It only sets up some basic shot-reverse shot cameras and does the lip sync generation. No expressions or gestures or anything.
Right.
Now, during development, the team would almost certainly have had to prioritize which dialogue scenes needed the most attention, as they just wouldn't have time to go in and polish every single scene before the game shipped. This means that a fair number of low-priority scenes would probably ship in that initial auto-generated state. I imagine this was true even for The Witcher 3, because, I mean, everybody has deadlines. Maybe that's what we're seeing here. A lot of scenes that only got the auto-generation algorithm treatment. Maybe the team had originally expected the algorithm to give better results, but then the tech just didn't come together like they hoped it would, and by the time they realized it, it was too late to try a different approach. Or maybe their original intention was to go in and clean up every auto-generated scene by hand, but due to unforeseen complications, they just ran out of time and were forced to ship with a lot of unfinished scenes. Or heck, maybe they ran out of time because the schedule was just too aggressive to begin with. Maybe the publisher rushed it out the door to hit an important release window they were targeting. Or I could be entirely off base and there might be a completely different combination of problems at fault here. You can see why I'm hesitant to make guesses at this.
Right.
I mean, the fact that the first noticeable improvement BioWare patched in wasn't even an animation change, but a series of character model and texture improvements to make the eyes look better, it really goes to show just how many different variables are contributing to how these conversations look. But the ultimate, unavoidable result we're left with is a game with an extremely flawed dialogue animation system, which distracts from conversation. Games developers, most of all. I guarantee you nobody is more frustrated or disappointed over these issues than the people who poured years of their lives into making the game.
Yeah.
Of course, it sounds like they've got plans to continue addressing these problems with some significant patches over the next few months, and I hope they'll be able to bring the game to a point that they and everybody else is happy with. We shall see. Anyway, I hope this has given you a better understanding of how modern RPG dialogue animation systems work, and perhaps even a greater admiration for the games that have triumphed in this area.
Definitely does.
100%. I still haven't played Andromeda. I mean, I still haven't beat fucking Mass Effect 3. But I was so excited for it, and then finding out that it sucked was just like...
Well, there's a lot of people who like it.
But it was just like, you know, like y'all, everyone knows how much I love Mass Effect, you know what I mean? And so like finding out that they really just didn't do the best job that they could do. Like you have all of this money, you have every resource imaginable to make an amazing game, and they decided to rush it out.
Yeah.
And that's just so disappointing to me, because we could have had this beautiful, not just like a rebirth of the Mass Effect series. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's not what we got.
Yeah.
And it's just so disappointing, because Mass Effect was such an amazing and groundbreaking series, I feel like.
Well, I feel like at a certain point, you got to give it a shot. You know, it's been out for long enough that you gotta try it out. I know you really like going in order with things, which is your biggest thing. You're gonna have to restart the third game before you even get to Andromeda.
Third game? I have to restart the whole series.
Oh yeah, that's how Skitten likes to do stuff. But that's all a part of the gaming experience. You know, playing games the way you like, the way you enjoy to do it. You know.
But before I do that, I need to be a wife.
You already are a wife.
Yeah. I'm being a wife.
Go ahead, be a wife.
I'm being a wife.
Just leave me out of it.
I can't leave you out of it.
Huh?
That's not how being a wife works.
Oh, what is the other part about being a wife?
You have to be a husband.
Oh man, I got a meeting it now. We'll see y'all. Thank you for joining me in this 3-part series of Mass Effect animation.
Jesus.
It's a long, we shot this shit for a long fucking time. I'll holler at y'all, man.
Peace.
Peace.